Welcome to New Hampshire Energy Week.
Welcome to New Hampshire Energy Week.
Welcome to New Hampshire Energy Week.
We are excited to explore New Hampshire's energy future with you through a great lineup of events
that bring together business, policy, and community leaders from across the state
to discuss innovation, emerging technology, resiliency, and new opportunities.
Events like New Hampshire Energy Week help remind us of the importance of Granite Staters coming together to meet this existential challenge.
New Hampshire's energy future is now because we know the climate crisis is before us and we know we must address it head on.
Nashua was one of the founding members of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. We're excited to be leading this work alongside so many other community partners across New Hampshire.
Together,
we are all a part of New Hampshire's energy future.
Welcome to New Hampshire Energy Week. My name is Doria Brown and I'm the Energy Manager for the City of Nashua. Thank you for joining us today as we kick off Energy Week 2023. I am so excited to be here because energy is a big part of my life and my career. I turn on my lights every day and I come to work and I work on energy every day. So I'm so excited to hear about these energy conversations. We have a great lineup for you today that underscores the importance of all of us working together towards New Hampshire's energy future. In the next hour, you will hear national, regional, and local examples of leadership on a range of energy-related topics like offshore wind and community power. In Nashua, we're pursuing a number of goals that support our progress towards a thriving, resilient future. Some of those big picture goals include achieving 100% renewable energy by 2050 and a 20% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2025. You can learn more and follow along Nashua's journey at livablenashua.org. And I look forward to sharing more with you throughout the day's program about the exciting sustainability initiatives we have underway in Nashua. New Hampshire Energy Week organizing partners are able to bring you today's programming and this week's events thanks to the generous support of our sponsors. We would like to take a moment to recognize New Hampshire Saves and Eversource for being our presenting sponsors. We also want to thank our premier sponsors, Revision Energy and the Nature Conservancy of New Hampshire, and our supporting sponsors, Coca-Cola Northeast, Rath Young and Pignatelli, and the Burgess Biopower. In addition to today's programming, we have a number of exciting virtual and in-person events happening throughout the week, and we hope you will consider joining us. We will be covering a broad range of energy-related topics, including investing in resiliency, emerging technologies, and celebrating our 2023 Energy Champions. For the first time this year, we will be hosting an energy trivia night at Smutty Nose Brewery. Join us in Hampton on Wednesday evening as a team or an individual for a fun night with great prizes. Interested in a career in the energy sector or learning more about resources that can support your community, business, or nonprofit in reaching their energy goals? Sign up for Thursday's virtual career and resource fair. Learn more about New Hampshire Energy Week events and sign up by scanning the QR code on your screen or visiting newhampshireenergyfuture.org. It is now my pleasure to introduce New Hampshire's United States Senator Maggie Hassan.
Hello, I'm Senator Maggie Hassan. Thank you to everyone who's made the 6th Annual New Hampshire Energy Week possible. The work that you are doing to help build a clean energy future could not be more urgent. Climate change is an existential threat to our communities and our way of life. From extreme weather events causing millions of dollars of damages to flooding along the seacoast, we've seen firsthand in New Hampshire that climate change is already having real impacts that are affecting Granite Staters from all walks of life. Events like New Hampshire Energy Week help remind us of the importance of Granite Staters coming together to meet this existential challenge. Building a clean energy future should be an effort that unites all Granite Staters. Not only is investing in clean energy critical to reducing emissions, but it is also an essential way of bringing down families' and businesses' energy costs. In New Hampshire especially, we've seen the toll that high home energy costs can take on families. That is all the more reason why it's in our interest to find a way forward by building a more efficient, clean energy future. I'm proud to join you in your efforts to promote clean energy, and we've recently taken major steps to help do just that. I helped pass the Inflation Reduction Act, a landmark law with tax cuts for families to promote energy efficiency and reduce home energy costs, as well as investing in innovative clean energy technology. This law is putting money back in people's pockets, and estimates show that it could reduce emissions by over 40% within a decade. I also helped develop and pass the bipartisan infrastructure law, which invests billions of dollars in strengthening clean energy transmission and supporting domestic battery storage, all of which will help accelerate the usage of clean energy. And make no mistake, we only got these laws over the finish line thanks to determined advocates around the country, including many people in this room. Of course, there's much more work we need to do, and I'll continue to stand alongside you in those efforts. By building on the progress we've made, we can ensure that America and New Hampshire can help lead the way in building a stronger, more innovative clean energy future.
Thank you, Senator Hassan, for sharing what is happening on the federal level to support New Hampshire's energy future. Next, we will hear from Liz Klein, who serves as the Director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management in the U.S. Department of the Interior. Ms. Klein is an attorney who specializes in clean energy, climate change, and environmental law and policy. She's been a member of the Biden-Harris administration since January 2021 and has previously worked for both the Clinton and Obama administrations. The Department of the Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management manages the responsible development of America's offshore energy and mineral resources. The Bureau promotes energy independence, environmental protection, and economic development through the responsible science-based management of energy and mineral resources on the U.S. Outer Continental Shelf. In New Hampshire, our 18 miles of shoreline provides an exciting opportunity for our state to explore new ways to diversify our energy resources. In Nashua, we're powering our local grid in a number of ways, including through the use of hydroelectric dams that generate enough energy to power municipal facilities for a year. Let's hear from Ms. Klein about the exciting initiatives underway at the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management.
Hello, I'm Liz Klein, and I am the Director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or BOEM. On behalf of Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, I am honored to kick off the 6th annual New Hampshire Energy Week. Since day one of his administration, President Biden has set a bold vision for tackling the climate crisis with the urgency that science demands. By building a clean energy economy that benefits all Americans, with lower costs for families, good paying jobs for workers, and healthier and cleaner water for communities. This vision is reflected in the historic pieces of legislation passed during this administration, namely the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. These laws are aimed squarely at building a better America and delivering on the president's vision to make sure the United States, powered by American workers, remains the global leader in clean energy technology, manufacturing, and innovation, while supporting more climate-resilient communities. The Department of the Interior, and more specifically, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, is playing a central role in the clean energy transition by facilitating renewable energy production on public lands and water. BOEM's guiding light in this effort is the goal to deploy 30 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2030 and 15 gigawatts of floating offshore wind by 2035, all while creating good-paying jobs, bolstering energy security, and ensuring all communities have access to economic opportunities. I am so very proud to lead BOEM at this pivotal moment. BOEM is moving forward with a sense of urgency to meet the administration's ambitious energy goals while remaining diligent in our efforts to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to ocean users and the marine environment. In just the past 2 years, we've approved the nation's first 2 commercial-scale offshore wind projects on the Outer Continental Shelf. We've initiated the environmental review of 10 additional projects and issued draft reviews for 7 of them. We held 3 lease sales last year off New York, the Carolinas, and California, and we are taking the next steps to bring offshore wind energy to more places like the Gulf of Mexico, the Central Atlantic, Oregon, and the Gulf of Maine. As the lead federal agency for planning and authorization of offshore wind, BOEM is delivering the regulatory pieces and processes needed to move offshore wind forward. We are finding ways to bring more clarity, efficiency, and predictability to our policies and decision-making processes. We want ocean users and stakeholders to have the information they need and an equitable and accessible seat at the table. We're taking a thoughtful, all-of-government approach to issues like ocean co-use and permitting, so we can build a robust offshore wind industry, one that benefits communities and coexists with other ocean users with minimal impacts. We're also thinking about the communities who disproportionately bear the burdens of climate change and pollution, as well as those communities who rely on the ocean for their livelihoods and cultural identity. We're working hard to build trust, engage respectfully, and maintain open and transparent relationships with tribal governments. And we are actively seeking public feedback throughout every step of the offshore wind development process. We are working hard to first avoid, then minimize, and then mitigate impacts to ocean users and the marine environment as much as possible. And we do all of that relying on the best available science and indigenous knowledge to inform our decisions. Of course, the federal government can't do this alone. Fortunately, states like New Hampshire are taking the initiative. Your continued leadership will be crucial to developing offshore wind. Events like New Hampshire Energy Week are important forums to bring people together, to explore exciting possibilities, hear different perspectives, and discuss solutions to ensure a clean energy future is available for everyone. Because the slogan is true, New Hampshire's energy future is now. And actually, I would say our nation's energy future is now. Because we know the climate crisis is before us, and we know we must address it head on. We won't always agree on the best way to get there, but if we work together, we can build a strong, enduring offshore wind industry and ensure that American communities across the nation benefit from the potential of offshore wind. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy New Hampshire Energy Week.
Thank you, Ms. Klein, for those inspiring remarks. Federal, state, and local policies can often shape how we approach our priorities at the community level. In Nashua, we recently underwent a comprehensive planning process to create Imagine Nashua, a master plan that focuses on equity, resilience, and climate protection as core values guiding growth and the development in the city. During this process, it was critical for us to hear from the community about how they envision the future of Nashua and ensure their voices are reflected in our plans across the city for the coming years. One of the top goals identified in Imagine Nashua was to mitigate the impacts of climate change on the community and encourage public health. We're doing this in a number of ways, but let me tell you about a few innovative policies that are supporting this work. In Nashua, we are currently working on a process to procure more hybrid and electric vehicles. We are evaluating how to put charging in front of our buildings to ensure that those vehicles have a place to power, as well as a process to make sure that those vehicles charge in a timely manner so our fleet can get out and do the jobs that they have to do. Not only is this great for the environment, it makes fiscal sense for the city as we evaluate maintenance costs over time. Now a word from one of our presenting sponsors, New Hampshire Saves.
Hello everyone, this is Joe Van Gombos of the Unitil Energy Efficiency Team, representing the New Hampshire Saves utilities as we launch New Hampshire Energy Week 2023. We're in for a really exciting week ahead, exploring a broad range of policy and program innovations, from local initiatives like community aggregation, all the way through to considerations of how federal and global progress towards more efficient, equitable energy systems will impact our local infrastructure. Among all this excitement, let's be sure to maintain awareness of the fundamental concept of using less energy to create healthier, more productive buildings by leveraging our well-established energy efficiency programs. As key partners in actualizing energy system innovation, the New Hampshire utilities look forward to the week ahead with all of you.
We've heard from federal and state leaders about opportunities for New Hampshire's energy future. Now I'm excited to hear about those in our communities working towards local goals and implementing new solutions like community power. Community power is something I'm really passionate about. Nashua was one of the founding members of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. We're really excited to be leading this work alongside so many community partners across the state. Now we will hear from a great panel of local leaders about how community power and energy initiatives are shaping up across the state.
Hello, my name is John Condos, and I work as the Monadnock Region Energy Circuit Rider at Clean Energy New Hampshire. Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to be serving as a moderator for today's panel on how New Hampshire communities are implementing community power. Clean Energy New Hampshire promotes clean energy through advocacy, education, and actions for a stronger economic future. We are proud to be an organizing partner for New Hampshire Energy Week. In my role as a circuit rider, I work with municipalities in the Monadnock region to create strategies and implement energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Before we dive into today's discussion, let's start with a brief overview of the opportunity that community power provides in New Hampshire. By adopting a community power program, a local government, such as a city, town, or county, may buy electricity on behalf of its residents and businesses. This provides the opportunity for the community to purchase energy in bulk, which ultimately lowers electricity costs for the local residents and businesses. Community power providers are well positioned to save New Hampshire ratepayers millions of dollars in the next few months. In New Hampshire, there are a number of community power providers, each with different approaches. Similarly, New Hampshire communities are implementing community power programs in unique ways that best meet their local needs. Our conversation this morning will provide a better understanding of how communities of all sizes, structures, and capacities are implementing community power, as well as working towards local sustainability goals. Let's begin our discussion with a brief introduction of the panelists. Joining us today, we have Clifton Below, Assistant Mayor of the City of Lebanon and Chair of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, Elizabeth Dragon, City Manager for the City of Keene, Katrin Casper, Select Board Representative to the Energy Committee and Community Power Committee for the Town of Lee, and a fellow Clean Energy New Hampshire Circuit Rider, Darrell Luter, member of the New Boston Energy Commission, and Michael Prang, member of the Town of Shelburne's Energy Committee and Androscoggin Valley Energy Collaborative. Thank you for joining us for this important conversation. We look forward to hearing from each of you how your communities are implementing community power and other important energy initiatives.
Thank you, John. In the near term, the most exciting thing is that over the next 3 months, Lebanon residents and businesses will see a 28% decrease in their power supply rate compared with the utility rate, realizing some $700,000 in bill savings, while the community accumulates over $800,000 in financial reserves to help stabilize rates in the future. In the long run, the most exciting thing is our potential to help lead the transition of our energy system to one that is more economically and environmentally sustainable, such as by accelerating the integration of cost-effective distributed energy resources, including developing community-scale renewables and storage. How did we prepare to start serving customers, which has begun this week and last? We started 7 years ago when our City Council designated the Lebanon Energy Advisory Committee as our electric aggregation committee pursuant to RSA 53E in order to pilot municipal aggregation. We learned that the statute on the books since 1996, but never used, was not workable without significant changes. So in 2019, we worked to update RSA 53E to enable community power programs to launch on an opt-out basis as alternative default service suppliers of power for customers that don't otherwise choose competitive power supply. After that bill passed, we invited our neighboring towns of Plainfield, Enfield, and Hanover to join us in considering best practices in how community power can have the greatest impact by joining together to develop and operate a joint powers agency to actively manage a portfolio of power supply and implement innovative rates and programs. We also secured a CDFA capacity building tax credit grant, raised the donations, and used the funds to develop a business plan and lay the groundwork for launch of the Community Power Coalition in New Hampshire, which incorporated on October 1st, 2021 with 14 member jurisdictions. We've since grown to 32 municipal members and one county representing nearly a quarter of the state's population. Our volunteer board competitively sourced vendor partners to help us launch and operate, and we began serving our first customers last week and helped and the coalition helped members draft and adopt electric aggregation plans. We got rules adopted by the PUC and followed all the requirements to successfully begin launching community power programs for some 65,000 customers initially, with many more to come. So we're looking forward to the expansion of community power in New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, the City of Keene has taken a regional approach to community power and joined with Marlborough, Swansea, and Wilton to launch a community power program this year. How did you determine that this was the best path forward for your communities? And what could other cities and towns interested in pursuing a collaborative approach learn from this model?
Well, thanks, John. Thanks for including the City of Keene in the conversation this morning. We're really excited to talk about the success of our community power program so far. The goals of our program are both to save money and increase the use of renewable energy without taking on additional risk. And we've been able to successfully do that with our partner communities, Swansea, Wilton, and Marlborough. This is an important step in meeting our city energy goals. Back in 2019, Keene City Council adopted sustainable energy goals around electricity and thermal energy use. Our goals are to source 100% of electricity from renewable sources by 2030. And that's not just for the municipality, that's for the community as a whole. And to also source 100% of thermal and transportation energy by 2050. In 2021, Keene adopted a sustainable energy plan, which identified pathways to reaching our goals, created baselines, created action plans, and prioritized our strategies. Community power was identified as one of the top strategies, largely because of scale of impact. Next, we did an RFP and hired our consultants to help us create our community power plan, Good Energy and Standard Power. We chose these consultants because of their experience, both as electricity brokers in New Hampshire and as aggregation brokers in Massachusetts. We chose instead to hire a consultant instead of joining the larger New Hampshire Community Power Coalition, because this allowed us to maintain maximum flexibility and decision-making without taking on any additional risk or any continuing obligations. There's no infrastructure or administrative support required beyond educational efforts here at the city. We created our community power plan with the help of our consultants and input of our residents. Once the plan was adopted by the PUC, we bid out the electricity. So we jointly bid with the communities of Swansea, Marlborough, and Wilton because they were using the same consultants as the City of Keene and they were ready to move forward. And these efforts proved successful. Our default option for electricity is 11.47 cents, which adds extra renewables from New England. It adds an additional 10% voluntary renewable energy. The 100% renewable energy price option in our package is 13.9 cents, which is still substantially lower than the Eversource rate of 20.22. So we're hoping our residents will choose to add even more than the 10% option for renewable. We executed a 30-month contract with a June 1st implementation date. One of the great things about this program is anyone can leave. So if for some reason Eversource's rates were to drop below ours, they can leave the plan. If for some reason Eversource's rate goes above ours, they can come back to the plan. There's absolutely no risk. There's no risk to the resident and there's no risk to the city. We are currently holding public meetings and answering questions from the public. Actually, last night was a very large public meeting. The city's energy supplier is Direct Energy, and they sent out a letter to all of our utility users on April 12th. And there's a 30-day option for people to either opt in, opt out, or choose more or less than the default rate. And we had a large public meeting last night and answered a lot of questions from our residents. And we are very excited to finally launch Community Power Keene and offer our residents and businesses a stable and competitive electricity rate. This program is the culmination of countless hours and dozens of meetings spent with volunteers and the Keene City Council to develop a program that meets the needs of our community. And this will launch on June 1st.
Great. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Darrell, New Boston had a comprehensive strategy for community outreach and engagement to ensure residents were informed before making a decision on whether the community power program was right for them. Can you tell us about the different ways you engaged with fellow community members leading up to the town's vote?
Sure, John. New Boston is a relatively small community. We're less than 2,000 households. One of the big things that was a gating event for us was kind of the sticker shock on everybody's energy bill months back. And so we had done a little bit of research as to how Keene had gone through the process and how they were successful. And sitting on the New Boston Energy Commission, we had collectively decided to head in that direction. So we wanted to ask the community a couple of questions as to what their concerns would be, and identify those in a way in which we'd be able to apply them to a community outreach approach that would eventually neutralize those concerns and help educate the community. One of the big ones that came up more often than not was what happens when the power goes out. If the power lines go down, is somebody else going to have to repair them? And we assured the community that no, everything would stay exactly the same. Eversource would own the lines and they would manage the repairs. So that was one that was really big for everybody. So to get that one out of the way in the beginning was pretty critical. The second one was, to Elizabeth's point, the opt-in, opt-out. That was a little confusing for some residents. So we held 2 public hearings. Strategically, we did so in a way in which we could accommodate people's traditional job schedules and non-traditional job schedules, because we wanted everybody in the community to be able to participate and to voice their concerns and ask their questions. And so that question was one that was pretty easy to kind of explain to them, where it's a no risk, no penalty. You're in, you're out at your liking, at your leisure. And then the third one was cost savings, because that was the ultimate underlying goal, was to find a way to get those energy bills down and to put money back in the pockets of the residents. And so we implemented a pretty healthy social media campaign that was led up by the committee members. We all kind of took it upon ourselves to reach out on certain community pages to post information that was provided to us by Standard Power. They were wonderful to work with. They gave us all of the tools we needed to get in front of the community and to ultimately convince them that this is the right way to go for the community. And then we did a traditional print campaign, which was kind of, getting out there and just handing out flyers and knocking on doors and putting them up at the library and town hall and whatnot. So we really took this 3-prong approach to try and make sure that we were hitting every demographic of the committee. And we also made it very important to make sure that we kept this completely politically neutral, because we also felt that was going to be some sort of a stigma with the program. So we divorced it from that entire component, and we just kind of kept it about voting yes for community power in New Boston means you're going to save money potentially on your power bills. But voting no means you're telling your neighbor that you don't want them to save money. So we convinced everybody, or most people in town, that even if you don't agree with it and you don't like it and you are going to plan to opt out, vote yes, because you're still going to save your neighbor money. So we kind of took the real small town community approach to heart, and that 3-prong campaign for us was ultimately a success on voting day. So
great. That sounds pretty effective. Michael, Shelburne and the Androscoggin Valley are working on a number of exciting initiatives that will help diversify local energy sources. Could you tell us about these broader energy goals and how community power fits into the landscape of energy sources?
Yes, thank you. So many New Hampshire industries were founded on renewable hydropower. In Coos County, my home in the North Country, with our hydro, biomass, wind, and solar, we now produce abundant renewable energy. We are a net exporter of energy. Given this local energy abundance, why is it that when some Russian dictator decides to destabilize Europe or a Saudi prince decides he needs a new palace, our local energy rates rocket skyward? It's because our communities don't have local control over where our energy comes from. So the Androscoggin Valley Energy Collaborative was formed to put us back in control of our local energy economy. The town of Shelburne, where I'm from, is a town of 300 people. We don't feel like we have political power with Eversource to do anything. But when we come together with our energy collaborative, now we're a number of communities, and so that gives us more power. The Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire is our partner in doing this. In fact, just this afternoon, I'm meeting with members of the Community Power Coalition team to plan to lay the groundwork for building our energy future. Now, how often does your local utility discuss economic development with your community leaders? You know what? I know Eversource has never come to the select meetings in Shelburne. So the best part of the coalition that works for me is it allows me to work shoulder to shoulder with communities throughout New Hampshire and with industry experts that work with community power to discuss ideas and implement plans that will best serve our local communities.
Fantastic. I love that part about the net exporter. Katrin, how did community power bring the town of Lee together? Can you tell us about the opportunity they saw in community power and how your community moved towards local adoption?
Absolutely. So our energy committee was looking for ways that we can move forward in new ideas for energy, and learned about community power and started to look into it and find out different providers and options. And it was really interesting that brought a lot of new energy into the community, that energy committee. And we started to grow and have more voices involved. And as we learned more, a lot of things others have said, we had the realization that to vote yes, even if you were someone who didn't want anything to do with it, meant allowing choice for your neighbor, but you still had your full choice, and learning about the different options. Our town is about 4,500 people, so we were concerned about how much energy our staff had for projects and things. So we were very interested in finding out how to make this as simple a transition as possible. But when it came time to vote, it was the highest vote getter in our community because it's not a political issue. And we had just gone through some pretty rough years. I don't know if y'all remember, a little divisive. And so it was really lovely to see the community come together, support each other, understand that this was going to help their neighbors and them, and that it was going to save money. And people that are excited about energy were able to opt into full solar options. We were able to speak to the electric providers, and they were very encouraging for us to go ahead, Eversource and New Hampshire Electric Co-op, to go forward with this project because it is the lines that they maintain. It's not about selling the power. So it was really wonderful to see the community feel like we could all be excited about something together, vote together on something. And I feel like it's made a really big shift in how we're communicating with each other and how we're looking at the future together.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. Now let's open up the conversation. I'll ask anyone to chime in as they feel free to contribute. Let's start with, what did your community prioritize when looking for a community power partner? What criteria were critical in determining your selection?
Ease of use for us. It's very important that we understood it was simple and that we could implement quickly and it wouldn't be too confusing for residents.
Yeah, expertise in the field for us. We wanted somebody who had been through it successfully. Communication and responsiveness. I know we live in a world now where it's sometimes tough to get in touch with people, but we found somebody who was unbelievably communicative throughout the entire process. So,
yeah, I would say the same for us in terms of experience. Because community power was so new, it never really had taken off until the change in the law for the opt-out versus the opt-in. we wanted someone who had some experience actually aggregating and putting the power out to bid.
In the Androscoggin Valley, we were looking for a partner that had experience, had resources to put agreements together, and had flexibility to allow the Androscoggin Valley to focus on renewable energy that's produced locally.
And for Lebanon, the issue was trying to go beyond sort of the simple broker model where you just put the load out to bid for a fixed number of years and try to look at what is the structure that has the potential to have the greatest impact in terms of helping drive change, in terms of helping affect the regulatory and legislative process. And part of that model was looking at the success of community power in California, where it's grown to serve about half the state's residents using the Joint Power Agency model. And we did a competitive solicitation based on what some of the community power programs in California did, like Redwood Coast, and secured vendors. We had very good competitive responses, but we secured vendor partners who have serving millions of customers in California experience and have helped facilitate those joint power agencies to actually develop and thousands of megawatts of new renewables and storage, and develop demand response programs, and sort of really open the hood on how the whole thing works. It did take perhaps more work and more engagement, but I think most of our board members feels like that's been worthwhile because they have really begun to understood how the whole system works better and where our levers are for potential change to help evolve this system.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me ask, what advice would you give? What would you say to a community that might be hesitant to dive into community power? You know, what partnerships or resources are available to support them?
One thing I'd point out is that all of either structure is designed to insulate the taxpayer and the local government from any liability, so that you're never putting taxpayer funds at risk, because both by law and by design, these programs have to be self-supporting. So I think that's a really important thing to build understanding for. And in both ways of doing this, you don't have to have internal staff that takes this on. That is part of the point of having vendor partners, is that they can provide the customer support services and help develop the plans based on templates that we've already sort of proven that are approvable by the PUC. And it's just that this is, while power procurement is ultimately a complicated and challenging business, it's not one that the individual towns have to take on their own. There are resources to bring that expertise to your community in whichever model you want to pursue.
I would say that it's pretty exciting that people now have resources that they can talk to. So some of the groups, had started off and it was in the beginning, but now there's actually towns that are experiencing it. So reach out to other towns. Absolutely use clean energy circuit riders in your area. Little plug there. And just know that there's people that want to help and answer questions. You're not having to blaze the trail anymore. So you can absolutely reach out. I think everyone on this call would be happy to speak to you about their experiences as well.
There was no upfront costs. And when we did an RFP, we hired our consultants, and they don't get paid until you actually launch the program, and it's part of the overall program. So there really is no risk. You work with them to create your community power plan. You seek your input from the public, and then you go out to bid. And it's very similar to how the city does a lot of bidding for things that we have already in our community. Before community power, we were bidding out our power for the municipality. And I think of this as very similar to that. And it really doesn't have to be as complicated as some think that it is.
I think one of the things that came up right in the beginning after speaking with our representative was the formation of our Community Power Aggregation Committee. It was a surprisingly light lift. once we had the committee established, it was amazing at how simple the process was, how straightforward it was. We were thinking we were going to be coming up with tons of collateral material that we were going to have to get out there, but it's all, they put it at our fingertips, and it's more of a community sales pitch from that point on. So we thought it was going to take a lot more of our time, and in reality, it really didn't. And the upshot is definitely worth it.
I would add, we have a unique opportunity that's developed down here in the Monadnock region. Our county, Cheshire County, which is the primary county that in southwest New Hampshire, they've joined the coalition and set up a plan. And very soon they plan to have an option for smaller towns, or any towns really, to join through them. And it probably makes it just another and perhaps even easier way to join into community power than some of the other alternatives that we've talked about. So that's something that other counties around the state may, in fact, pursue once they see how the model works in Cheshire County. But if I may ask, what resources did you anticipate needing to support your community in adopting community power? Were there any unexpected challenges that came up that you would recommend other communities plan for when considering community power?
When it came time to convince the Shelburne Select Board to join the Community Power Coalition, I think their concern would there be some sort of financial obligation. And once we made it clear that they could join, and then we would have a seat at the table and we could start to learn about it and start to influence decisions, that sort of thing, then they were wholeheartedly in favor of this. And towns up and down the Androscoggin Valley, we're approaching them the same way, and towns are joining. Seems like every month we have another town joining. And as we put together a regional plan here, I think that's quite a unique thing within Community Power Coalition, to get a bunch of towns together with regional economic goals, and Community Power Coalition really supports that approach.
Yeah, I think for us, just staff support for education and outreach, that was really the largest lift. And really right now that we've moved to the implementation phase as well, it's about education. At last night's public meeting, there was some confusion about how to opt in and how to opt out. And so, looking at ways to explain that process is really been, it's really been about communication and education. And we are following SB 166 closely because it is our hope the next time we go out to bid, we will be able to source our renewable green energy here locally, and thereby also encouraging more local energy projects. And so it's really important that SB 166 gets through the process and ultimately gets adopted to give us more flexibility, because part of our community power plan talks about encouraging more local sustainable projects.
So if I may, I'll move on to the next question. What possibility or opportunity are you most excited about when it comes to launching your community power locally?
Helping our residents save money and moving towards our energy goals, adding the 10% additional renewable in the default option moves us in that direction. But it was really exciting to get a price that 100% is lower than Eversource's current default rate. And so, both of those things, the ability to save money for our residents and the ability to make progress on our energy goals.
So saving money is of course a big point for everyone. But another point for us is to buy energy that's produced locally with local dollars and invest in our economic welfare. And also we can promote other renewable energy producers in our region.
Well, certainly living up to the state motto of live free, providing free solar energy should be a high priority, and it's surprising that it isn't a bigger one. Sun harvesting is a great way to get some free energy on a day like today. So we've heard a lot from panelists that education and engagement are critical elements. What approaches to education and engagement that we haven't yet discussed help make you successful? Was there anything else that I know I heard one that I'll share, which was that at the town recycling or transfer station that tabling or handing out information there was a very effective tool. Perhaps somebody has some others that they'd like to share.
The public hearings were probably the most effective because it was an opportunity for us to really get in front of the community. The social media was obviously a big component for us, but we wanted to really kind of stand in front of people and to tell them, honestly, that this is going to be a good decision for our community. To look at it, a modest savings over a 3-year period is going to put $1.25 million potentially back into the pockets of our community members. So it really was about the strategy and trying to figure out what the hot topics were going to be and how we're going to kind of tamp those down. But standing in front of people and telling them face to face was very effective for us.
I think you mentioned something about 2 different times to accommodate different work schedules. Do you want to comment on that, on those?
Yeah, we did. So we acknowledge that not everybody works 9 to 5. So we held one meeting during the week in an afternoon, and then we also held one on a Saturday, which was I think it was a Sunday at 1 o'clock, which unfortunately conflicted with a football game, but that was okay. Yeah, so that was a big one, to give everybody in the community an opportunity that if you couldn't get there on a Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock, Sunday at 1, come on down, talk to us. We're going to be here. We're going to give the same presentation.
We used social media, which worked out really well. We actually shared a lot of information. We posted it, reposted it, and then people were able to reach out and ask questions themselves. And it was great to have a lot of one-on-one conversations and really go into the questions that each person had individually. It's a nice thing about a small town. It's pretty easy to do.
And sharing those videos through social media, and the public access channel is another option for us. And then the other thing is really just our volunteers in the community. So there are a lot of groups in our community and our region that are really interested in are moving the city and the community and the region forward in our energy goals. And they were probably the largest, most effective tool that we have in our community, because they spread the word for us.
And with the pandemic, we've learned how to do virtual engagement. And so we took and recorded some of those public forums, as well as short video clips that people can access through the city website or through communitypowernh.gov. And linking that with that social media outreach and having people who can answer frequently asked questions, having those FAQs on the city website, on the Community Power website. We have a call center that's able to answer people's questions and respond to inquiries. So all of that, getting people in place who can respond to individual inquiries, it is valuable and important.
So in Shelburne, in addition to having 2 different information meetings at different times to accommodate people's schedule, we set up a table at the transfer station, because everybody goes through the transfer station. And not only could we chat then, but we had a FAQ all laid out for them so that they can walk away with that after our conversation. And that was super effective for us.
To wrap it up, looking ahead, as New Hampshire works towards a more resilient future, what's next for your community?
So in New Boston, we're actively working on trying to bring solar into the community more so. We were successful with our library. We had a solar program for our transfer station that unfortunately was priced out when the rates went up. But right now we're focusing on how we can reduce energy consumption in the community, with our school being the largest consumer in town, and trying to work on maximizing building systems and efficiencies of those systems, replacing them, installing hopefully solar. And then also we've converted all of our streetlights to LED, which was a massive savings. So the solar component for us is one that we're going to continue to explore in town.
We're looking at additional solar projects here. We just completed a 1.35 megawatt solar project for the wastewater treatment, which is the largest energy user in Cheshire County. And we have 3 more locations that we're currently looking at. We're also in the process of creating an EV charging strategic plan for our downtown. And we are looking at ways to reduce the use of cars to help not only for affordability for our families, but also for for parking reasons and for climate reasons. So we're looking at options for public transit.
Like others, the City of Lebanon is working a lot on accelerating our ability to support electrification of vehicles. The city has begun buying electric vehicles. We've been planning, we put in the infrastructure for the police station, for instance, because we had to repave parking lots. So we put in all the infrastructure so we can eventually convert our entire police fleet to electric vehicles. We're working on bringing online a landfill gas to energy project, which will provide essentially 1 megawatt of baseload power. We'd like Lebanon Community Power and other programs to be potentially a direct off-taker of that power generation, and combine that with developing, more fully developing our solar and storage potential. We've actually had a number of landowners come to us say, I think I've got a really good site for large solar project, but I'd really like it to be developed for Lebanon Community Power rather than just some limited group of people. So we're looking forward to being able to engage on that level as we move forward.
So in the Androscoggin Valley area, of course, the biggest win is insulation, LED light conversions, all of those sorts of things. And then also adding solar, rooftop solar, that sort of thing. It's a very easy thing to do. And I want to mention Clean Energy New Hampshire has been a wonderful partner, not only in helping to do planning, but helping to identify vendors, helping to write the warrant articles that need to be taken to town meeting. I mean, it was amazing for us because we had a 2-person energy committee in Shelburne, and we were overwhelmed. And then Melissa Ellender came up, and she was like a member of our committee. She was there at the meeting. She was there at the select board presentations. And so I encourage towns to take advantage of that resource. But moving forward, we're looking at energy storage options so that we can make better use, perhaps, of the wind and solar, which isn't on all the time. And also, since I mentioned that we are a net exporter of energy, we're looking into some kind of investment into the COAS transmission loop, right? How can we take advantage of that? We see increased economic activity in COAS, but also getting some value out of that energy, the renewable energy that we are exporting. So these are all very big initiatives, and we're looking forward to partnering with the coalition to make these things a reality.
The town of Lee is looking into adding more solar. We just had our first solar installation, and we're excited to keep moving forward. We are planning to have our next police vehicle be electric, and going forward with electric vehicles from there. We are installing public chargers as soon as we can, and we are having our highway department is looking into electric vehicles as well as our transportation. We are looking into weatherization. We've already done a huge insulation project and have several more because we have quite a collection of older buildings in Lee that all need some weatherizing. So there are so many areas that we're looking forward to moving ahead and making great choices to save the taxpayers money and also to increase our energy. We're also working on a draft for a climate action plan to present to the select board.
I would just like to add to that I haven't heard about the wonderful sources of funding from both the BIL, the infrastructure law, and then the Inflation Reduction Act. Both provide significant revenues in funding for communities to do this. And I know as a circuit rider, I'm watching these grant opportunities come, and my best advice is to identify shovel-ready projects, because the grants come along and they have a relatively limited window, excuse me, to apply. So being ready with projects is the best advice that I can offer. So that concludes our panel for today. Thank you again for taking the time to join us, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation and the insights from our panelists.
community power providers are set to save ratepayers millions of dollars in the next few months. I can't wait to see what they do in the next few years. My story with Nashua actually starts in Nashua's Environment and Energy Committee. It was established in 2017. I was asked to join the committee as a representative from a manufacturing company that I used to work for called Worthen Industries. On that committee, I learned about local energy solutions and I got addicted. And I decided to join the city as their energy manager. Local energy committees are a great way to get more involved in your community. If you're really motivated and want to do something more, look to see if your community has a local energy committee. If they don't fret. Clean Energy New Hampshire has resources to help you start a local energy committee in your community. Thank you for joining us as we kick off New Hampshire Energy Week 2023. We covered a number of topics critical to New Hampshire's energy future and have heard from federal and state and local leaders advancing important work. We appreciate the generous support of our sponsors that make New Hampshire Energy Week possible. We would like to take a moment to recognize New Hampshire Saves and Eversource for being our presenting sponsors. We also want to thank our premier sponsors, Revision Energy and the Nature Conservancy of New Hampshire, and our supporting sponsors, Coca-Cola Northeast, Rath Young and Pignatelli, and the Burgess Biopower. The 2023 New Hampshire Energy Week organizing partners have a great lineup of virtual and in-person events taking place throughout the week. We hope you will join us as we cover important topics like investing in resiliency, emerging technologies, and workforce opportunities. We will also be celebrating our 2023 Energy Champions on Friday, May 5th, in person on the Bank of New Hampshire stage in Concord. And again, for the first time this year, we will be hosting Energy Trivia Night at Smutty Nose Brewery. Learn more about New Hampshire Energy Week events and sign up by scanning the QR code on your screen or visiting newhampshireenergyfuture.org. Thank you for spending your time with us today. New Hampshire's energy future is bright, especially when we all come together and work towards a more resilient future. We hope to see you in the coming days as we celebrate New Hampshire Energy Week.